Today we get a story time of a Karen who smacks the teacher for failing her son. Yeah, some people, sometimes Karens ask to talk to the manager. Sometimes Karens will stomp their feet and get mad. But in this case, the Karen actually attacked the freaking teacher because her son didn't do any of the work. Let's jump right into it. So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted this story Jay. And anyways, in Jay's class, there's a kid who we're going to call the spoiled kid. And the spoiled kid is your stereotypical spoiled rich kid. Everything anything he could have wanted had been given to him. And, everything about him, his entire personality was the fact that he's loaded or his parents are loaded, let's just be specific. And just for example, he would, whenever he got a new something, so he got the new Gucci shoes or something like that, he would come into class and he would show off to everyone how he got the new what or got the new what, the whatever, right? And also it would just be little things like that, such as in class one day, I was like, oh, what did you guys do over vacation? And the spoiled kid went to the Mykonos Islands, which if you don't know, it's a really popular tourist location, but it's also a really expensive one. And you can go it costs a lot of money to go up there, right? I've never been, but it looks pretty cool, maybe one day. But anyways, maybe if he just said, oh, I went to Mykonos and kind of left it at that, no one would really care. Or at least it would be fine. I wouldn't call him a spoiled kid if he literally just responded to the teacher's question as anyone would respond. But he went on to be I went to Mykonos and I went there for an entire week and I flew over there in a private jet and I stayed in a 5-star hotel and I went on a shopping spree and spent $2,000 on designer clothes and et cetera, right? So this spoiled kid was, this kid was just a spoiled kid, right? And he also had a massive Karen mom. And this mom was literally notorious. She was known as being the biggest Karen ever, even before this story in which she smacks the teacher for failing her son, right? She was known as the biggest Karen ever, even before this. For example, this all had a couple months ago, in the very beginning of school, it was parents were allowed to come in to see their kids or whatever. And the Karen immediately rolls up in super expensive car or whatever. And she parks in the back. And there was parking in the front and parking in the back. And when it's finally the time is the day is over, kids are let out, they're all walking out with their parents. And this is when Jay, the subscriber, and his mom overhear yelling. And they look around and they see the Karen, the spoiled kid's mom, screaming about, my car has been stolen. My car is worth $100,000 and it's been stolen. Which one of you peasants stole my car? And the truth was she just forgot that she parked it in the back instead of parking it in the front. And it was kind of embarrassing for everyone else but her. I really don't think that Karen cared because she was able to tell everyone that she drove a $100,000 car and you need to know it, right? So, this mom was already known as a Karen and this kid was already known as the spoiled kid. So let's jump ahead to the actual story. So Jay is in class, and this spoiled kid is failing this class. He's not doing anything. So this kid was basically failing this class. Every day he would not every day he'd show up. Every day then he showed up. He showed up a third of the time, which in college, skipping your class, you can actually still do really well. And I know kids that get A's in their class and never show up. They only show up the days of tests and quizzes or whatever. Because the truth is, in college, sometimes it's honestly worth, I'm going to be honest, and maybe this advice will be taken the wrong way by some people, so understand your own levels, but sometimes teachers will try and explain subjects in an hour that you could have learned in a 20-minute YouTube video, and going to the class just doesn't make sense. Sometimes teachers are really good at their subject matter, but they're just not good at teaching. And whatever, I don't think I'd be that good at teaching. But this kid never showed up to class, and the times that he did, he was always on his phone. He never paid a single bit of attention. And whenever it was the teacher was okay, hand in your homework, the kid would always be sorry, I'll get it to you later. Basically, the kid handed in 0 homework assignments. Also, when the test came around, this kid very clearly did poorly. Jay, the subscriber, doesn't know the result of every single test that this kid did, but he saw one of the results, and the kid literally got like a 28%. Like, I think he only got 28% because he wrote his name down on the piece of paper. That's probably the only reason. I don't think he got any of the other points. So one day, Jay needed to ask the teacher a question. And it was one of those questions that was more personalized, so he just knew that the teacher would have appreciated it if he asked it after class. And also Jay, who just likes a little bit of privacy, even though it wasn't a very private situation, decided that he was going to ask a question to the teacher after the class. So he decides to wait after class. And he tells the teacher, hey, I have a question for you after class. And the teacher's like, okay, cool. So he asked the question, and the teacher, before class period ended, also asked Jay to stay, to be like, hey, Jay, can you stay after class for a second? Jay kind of rolls his eyes or whatever. And not Jay, sorry, the spoiled kid. He asked the spoiled kid to stay after class, and the spoiled kid kind of rolls his eyes. He's like, whatever, dude. But Jay asks his question, the teacher answers it, and then Jay goes back to the back of the classroom so he can pick up his backpack, put that thing all together, and leave to go to his next class. So while he's doing that, he overhears the conversation that the spoiled kid and the teacher are having. The teacher basically explains to the spoiled kid, look, I've never failed a student before. I really only like giving out A's and B's, but there's no way that I cannot not fail you right now. If what's going on right now continues, I'm sorry, but it's very likely that you'll fail this class. And the spoiled kid kind of perks up a little bit, because while the spoiled kid put 0 effort in, he was kind of expecting to get C's or whatever. And the spoiled kid's like, what? Is that because you don't like me? Is that because you don't appreciate my lifestyle? And the teacher's like, what? No, it's very clearly defined. The class attendance is 30%, homework is 30%, test, quizzes, and other is the other 20%. I really can't, or 40%. I didn't, okay, those probably don't add up. I didn't even think about it. Just make those add up. I don't have that part written down. I made that up off the top of my head. So don't be like, oh, computer science major, can't even add numbers together. Shut up. Anyways, the teacher basically explains that even being super generous in the departments, saying he got 100% attendance when he showed up a third of the time, or giving him extra credit or whatever, he's not even close to passing the class. So the teacher basically says, look, if you show up to every class, or basically every class, I'll allow 1 or 2 mistakes, right? If you basically show up to every class, and you pay attention, and it looks like you're paying attention, I will make sure that you pass, even if the numbers don't add up. But if things continue as they are, it's unlikely that you'll pass. So normally, bro, in my opinion, if I was given this opportunity as the spoiled kid, basically the teacher's saying, you don't even need to try. You just need to show up. You need to do the bare minimum, and I will let you pass my class. That's a golden opportunity. That is such a good opportunity that the teacher's giving this kid. This kid he has the craziest reaction ever. Because the kid looks offended and looks at the teacher and is like, I'm not playing into your games. I'm not falling for that. I'm out of here, man. And the kid storms out of the class. Real quick, subscribe if you're new and you like story videos. Comment spoiled down below, or comment Karen. I'm giving you 2 options for the secret word of the day. I'll try and heart as many of those comments as I can. Obviously, leave a like in the video to claim your free nothing, and let's get back and do it. So anyways, the teacher is kind of taken a little bit back, because he did just offer this kid a pretty nice opportunity. In fact, Jay's low-key, if I just had to show up and do nothing and I got a C guaranteed, I don't know, man, it'd be tempting. But anyways, the next day comes around, and the next day is where all the action really comes in. Because Jay sits in class, and the spoiled kid is nowhere to be seen. However, this is not out of the blue, and especially after the spoiled kid stormed out of class at the very end when he's talking to the teacher, he could understand that the spoiled kid was probably quote unquote protesting the class or something really stupid that would make sense to the spoiled kid simply because he's a spoiled kid. So anyways, right, eventually, that is not the case. The spoiled kid, in fact, does show up to class. However, the spoiled kid does not show up to class alone because the teacher is in the middle of teaching when the door slams open. Normally, when you're late to class, you're trying to be as, like, sneaky, not sneaky, that has a bit of connotations. You're trying to be as quiet and discreet and kind of just respectful when you enter in late. I know, because, I can be late every once in a while. It happens, right? I come in, I'm a little bit late. Teacher's in the middle of lecture. What I'll do, I'll quietly open the door. I'll swiftly, but not drawing attention to me swiftly, make my way to the back of the classroom, sit down, and just pretend like nothing happened. And that's how you're supposed to do it, right? If you're late, it's how you're supposed to do it. Spoiled kid slams the door open. And so he slams it so intensely that the teacher and the class could not ignore him. He basically got all their attention like that. So everyone turns around to look at the spoiled kid. And it's not just the spoiled kid in the door. It is the spoiled kid and his notoriously Karen mom. We're just going to call her the Karen and him the spoiled kid, just for clarification. So the spoiled kid doesn't even say a word for the next interaction. The Karen immediately bursts into yelling. She's like, "You're failing my son because you're prejudiced against him because he's rich." And the teacher is just looking at her blankly, just like, bruh, what? Like, dude, I don't know what you're saying or how you came to such a ridiculous conclusion, is basically his train of thought right now, which makes sense because how did one come to such a conclusion like this? But anyways, the Karen goes on and is like, "I know that the only reason you're failing my son is because you're Richphobic." And someone in the class, in the way back to class, like let out like a very clear laugh. And like the Karen turned around and gave him a death stare, but then turned back to the teacher. And the teacher's like, "Ma'am," at this point, the teacher really kind of gave up any form of privacy he was going to give the spoiled kid because he's being confronted in front of the entire class. So he goes on to say, "Ma'am, like, no disrespect, but I'm not," or like, not even no disrespect. He doesn't say that. He says, "Ma'am, I'm not being quote unquote Richphobic," whatever that's supposed to mean. "Your son is failing the class because he never shows up and attendance is 30% of the grade. He has never handed in a single homework assignment, which is 30% of the grade. And I don't even want to tell you his quiz and test average, which is 40% of the grade. There's a reason why he's failing, and he's not failing because I'm quote-unquote Richphobic. That's ridiculous." And the Karen completely ignores it. It's like, "My son is telling me that you hate him because, when you question him on his lifestyle and he, answers your questions, that you got this look on your face of being super jealous because you want to live his life because he's so cool like that." Which is like, did the Karen literally just say, "My son is so cool like that, that's why you hate him and I'm failing him"? Like, you really got to question what's going on in this Karen's head. Does she have an internal monologue? Does she actually think? Or is she literally just like Look, is the spoiled kid controlling his mom with a little antenna, right? Is it like when Plankton jumped into SpongeBob's head and replaced his brain with like Plankton's device or whatever? Because it kind of sounds like this by the way that the Karen is acting. The teacher reiterates, "No, that is not why. Your son is failing the class because he is, not doing what is necessary to pass the class." The teacher just says it point blank, nice and easy, spells it out for the Karen. One would believe that it would be like understood. But no, the Karen actually starts to get up in the teacher's face and is like, "I'm going to give you to the count of 3 to change his grade from an F to an A plus or else." Which first of all, a billion things. First of all, you're going to give him the count of 3. Dude, I swear, the only time where you can count down and it does anything is if you're saying that to like a 4-year-old. If you tell a 4-year-old you're going to count to 3 and they have to go to bed, then they'll go to bed. if you tell a teacher you're going to count to 3 to change your son's grade from an F to an A plus because you're Richphobic AF, then no, that's not going to work. This is a fully grown adult, bro. Second of all, what do you mean or else? I mean, we're about to see what you meant by or else, but at the same time, it's like, bro, what is the Karen gonna do over here? So the teacher looks at her and says, I'm not changing the grade. I'm standing firmly on that. I've already told your son that if he simply attends class, I will consider not failing him. The teacher has to be a little bit careful by the way he says it, because he said it a bit more generously to the spoiled kid in private, but in public, he can't be like, oh yeah, if you just show up, I'll give you a C. Because then kids would just be like, just showing up, right? And the Karen says 3. She literally starts the countdown. And the teacher says, look, I don't want any trouble, but I'm not changing my mind. And I've already said this, but your son, if he just attended class, would at least get it, he would not be failing. 2. The Karen responds with 2. The teacher's like, I'm not changing my mind. And at this point, Jay and all the other kids in the class started to realize that something was about to go down. They could kind of feel the fight energy in the air. They could feel a little spark that was kind of starting to create itself, right? They felt that something was coming. 1. The Karen, sorry. I just said Karen in the middle of like a burp. So that's why I came out like, Karen. If you want to clip that, go ahead. But there's actually a clip feature on YouTube, which is kind of cool. You'll probably get more views in this video, which would be funny. But anyways, right, so sure enough, the Karen is looking at him. And the teacher is staring her down. And everybody in the class is just looking. And they're waiting, and they just want to see what is about to happen. And the Karen looks at the teacher and is like, I warned you. Boom! Smacks him across the face. It's dead silent before the smack. So when the Karen actually makes contact with the teacher, you can hear that smack and it reverberates around the room, right? It is the loudest smack of the century. Everyone's mouths drop. Everyone's slack-jawed. Some girl gasps. Some guy has his hand on his mouth, right? It's like, oh my God, this Karen mom legitimately just smacked our teacher across the face simply because, he doesn't... Well, why did she do that? Simply because she's claiming that he's Richphobic for failing her son for never showing up, never handing in the homework, and never doing well on the tests. Like, bro. So at this point, the teacher recovers because he's so shocked by the fact that he was just smacked across the face by this Karen mom, because he was not seeing that coming, right? And he immediately picks up his phone. He's like, yeah, I need you guys to come down here. We got a situation. Puts his phone down. It wasn't super clear who he called, but it turns out that he called like school security. All of the teachers were supposed to have them on speed dial just in case there was an emergency or a student got out of hand or for some reason they were needed, just in case there was a rogue Karen who entered the school who was trying to smack people who she claimed were quote-unquote Richphobic. That's a very common situation apparently, and they were trained accordingly. So the teacher's like, ma'am, you just hit me in front of all the students. And she's like, yeah, and if you don't change my son's grade from an F to an A+, there's going to be more of that coming at you. And also, you're Richphobic, and I can't stand for that. And she turns to the kid. She's like, we won't stand for any phobia, including Richphobia. Chant with me now. And all the kids are just looking at her blankly. Like, bro, you did not just try and latch onto the broad social movement for justice to slap on, oh yeah, guys, by the way, Richphobia, man. I hate it. Guys, I'm with you. Now, help me get my son an A+ because he never shows up. Okay, guys? Bro was really trying to latch onto that. And so Jay the subscriber looks at the spoiled kid. Because he was thinking, no way the spoiled kid isn't super embarrassed right now. Sure, he definitely wanted his mom to come and, get him the A+, but he was probably thinking that his mom was not about to smack the teacher in front of everyone and then try and get the entire class to be on his side. He was probably thinking, oh, my mom will just come in here and be super chill or something. Just like get it done easily. And like Jay was like, oh, this kid must be super embarrassed. But no, this kid almost seemed super happy that his mom was making a big deal out of it. He almost seemed like excited that she smacked the teacher across the face for no good reason. So sure enough, the teacher is like, no, I'm not going to give you another A. I'm not going to give your son an A. I don't care if you're going to hit me more times. I will not bend my morals to comply to your tyranny. He's being a little dramatic, but I also understand he's in a very unusual, to say the least, situation that we don't all find ourselves in. Or at least I hope, that we don't find ourselves in, right? So sure enough, the Karen is like, okay, well, you asked for it. I'm going to count down to 3 again, and you already know what's up. So this time, the teacher was more in a fighting stance. He wasn't about to drop kick the Karen, which would be pretty hilarious, and I would be down to see it. But he was probably going to try and dodge or avoid or gently block or whatever, and the Karen's like, 3! And that's when the door slams open. And these 2 big security guards grab the Karen by both of her arms, and she's screaming, assault! These men are assaulting me! Somebody help! Help me! The security guards are like, we're neutralizing a threat, and the threat is you. And they literally drag her out by the arms, bro. And she is screaming and thrashing. She's like, I'm being assaulted, and that Richphobic teacher isn't doing anything about it. Cancel him! Destroy him! She gets dragged out, the door clicks behind her. And the spoiled kid left with his mom being dragged out. The spoiled kid was not about to sit down in class after that just happened. And yeah, the spoiled kid never changed his attitude, so he ended up failing the class, which it was like the first time a kid had failed a class at this school, at this high school, in the longest time. Not saying every kid was an academic weapon or anything, but at the end of the day, the kids at least showed up, and the teachers were generous enough to be like, okay, you're showing up, you'll at least get a C. Like, I know you're failing the test, but you're doing your best, man. So yeah, moral of the story is, guys, if the morals aren't clear,
Click on the video on screen right now. I know you'll enjoy it. Just click it, do it.